Guess who got brands talking? Brandlife.co.za.
Esomakwaza nakukwaza ngalomkhonto hawe iyo hawe somakwaza. Okay, my name is Thando Bangaliso. This is brandlive.co.za. 27 boxes Melville. I don't fly alone. And I'm here with my beautiful wife, Vanya Mangaliso.
Happy Friday, everyone. Happy Heritage Weekend. How are you feeling, Scully?
I'm feeling great. I'm feeling proud. I'm feeling strong. The song that I sung is the song that we sing as we go into the bush from our transition from boys into manhood, you know. So as you can tell, this is a heritage themed program, and we're celebrating all things South African and all things that are heritage.
Excellent. Heritage Day is an important day, I think, because it actually reminds us of who we are. It's a great day for us to also celebrate our diversity, to celebrate the even our monuments, how far we have come. If we are to build better structures in the future, it's nicer to understand where we've come from.
Oh, for sure. I mean, you know, as you know, we travel a lot and we go all over the world. And the one thing I can say about South Africa is that, you know, we've got diversification. There's a celebration of this diversification. People are obviously from different cultures and different backgrounds. People like to celebrate their cultures very strongly, and people believe in their cultures. Now, you know, one might ask, okay, it's 2018. What is the relevance and what is the importance of culture?
Well, culture is important. It's the way we live. It's who we are. It's how we define our identity. It gives us a sense of purpose. It gives our lives a sense of meaning. It gives us a sense of community. You know, just celebrating things that bring us together. It's very important. It can never be underestimated.
Yes, and I think, you know, we without heritage, in the end of the day, I mean, yes, we've got our commonality as South Africans living in South Africa, and, you know, we do a lot of things together. But those small things that just, you know, make us different from one another need to be celebrated, you know, because if you look at a country without culture, I mean, if we do not have, you know, ritual, if we do not have identity, who are we? You know, what are we? And going forward, how are we able to express ourselves and live this South African life, so to speak?
Oh, definitely. And I think, you know, you think of all the conflicts around the world, how, you know, you've got cultures that are being eradicated purposefully by the dominant cultures. A day like this becomes important for even the small voices to be heard, the more smaller cultures to be celebrated. Because I also think that, you know, without diversity, I'm not sure what kind of future we have. I don't think this is what people want. But unfortunately, people get threatened by others affirming themselves, asserting their identity. It doesn't make sense. I think if you love your own heritage, you do love other people's heritage. I think it's all these things about low self-esteem and a bit of self-hatred where you can't find beauty. I think as a heritage designer, I love other cultures. I love it. It's really about authenticity. It's about giving a unique offering to the world, and it's just been amazing to watch how South Africans celebrate
Heritage Day.
I mean, since yesterday, you've been seeing everywhere people like dressing up. I think it's a big one for fashion. And one of the reasons we got into fashion, really, we got into fashion as a communicator. We saw, thank you for joining us. We saw fashion as a vehicle for sending this message for us as heritage designer. The heritage comes in the clothes that we design, the expression, the messages, the use of beads, the use of buttons, the use of feathers, you know, going back to Mother Nature as our inspiration.
Right.
You know, as we've often said, it's really not about just making beautiful clothes. I mean, that's great. That's important. But what really goes a long way is when there's meaning behind your creativity.
Definitely.
For instance, if you look, and fashion is a great vehicle for that. It's a great communicator. Because when you're standing there, before I can even hear what you have to say or what you're about, whatever message, even if I cannot even understand your language. If there's one thing that speaks volumes, it's what you wear, your communication. Hi, Victor. Hi, guys. And thank you, Naziza, for joining us too. So you know, fashion expresses that. And then when you go into indigenous fashion, indigenous clothes in South Africa, there's even meaning behind the clothes. You know, you wear certain colors. It says something about you. Like, you know, for instance, what a tough time we have in the store selling white beads. If something has mostly white beads, people are very reluctant because in South Africa, people associate white beads with ubutwasa and those kinds of things. Not necessarily in a negative way. It's just that a person doesn't want to be asked everywhere they go that, oh, you didn't tell us that you're an initiate at Twasa, you know, that sort of thing. So it's very hard to convince some people to you know, you learn a lot about in fashion, I tell you. It's very hard to convince some people to buy something that's got purely white beads, and because of the meaning that is loaded in the clothes and accessories. So
from what I'm understanding is that you can look into your own culture and find something unique and then begin to sell it to other people.
Oh, yeah.
So the whole notion of global tradition, local trend.
It's really about tapping into our heritage.
So the opportunities are there in not only clothing, but if you think of music, if you think of food, if you think of fine art, architecture, furniture design, all these things.
It's basically the way we live.
So in terms of a business strategy as a South African in the arts or whatever it is that you're doing, you know, you got to think of what is uniquely South African
that you can export,
and how can you export it to the world. I think that's very important.
Oh yeah, I mean, from a business point of view, our heritage is an endless source of inspiration. One of those things about having an industry that is, you know, relatively underdeveloped and undiscovered. If you think of places like America, they're so used to the kente cloths, the you know, the Nigerian fabrics, you know, the daishikis. But when it comes to things like South African food, South African fashion,
furniture,
I mean, the more authentic expression, that still has huge scope. People still, the world still needs to be exposed, and it's not because it's undervalued. It is because South Africans are not taking the initiative to take it out there. I mean, nobody can tell our stories better than we can, and that is what we try and encourage as heritage designers. You know, how do you take your local tradition and turn it into a global culture? No, for sure. I mean, we were listening to a song just before the show started, where I think it was a Nigerian or a Ghanaian R&B artist singing in pidgin English, but it's just a very, you know, West African sound, which is really starting to make waves, not only on the continent but worldwide. And the reason why they're able to make those waves is because they are bringing a unique contribution to what is already there, you know. People wanting new things, people wanting new expression, where you combine the familiar with the peculiar, and then you get, you know, something new, a new feeling. That's why there's just so much excitement. You know, even early on this year, some of the West African artists especially making huge waves at the BET Awards, which is, you know, very nice to watch, because, you know, obviously we've been watching this for the last like 10 years, and now it's all starting to form together. It's starting to come together. It's a particular sound. I'm not sure what the sound is actually called, but I think it is a subgenre of African music. So I think that's just wonderful, you know. Yeah, like we've got. Think of Black Panther as well. Ah, you took the words right out of my mouth. Like, it was such a moment of pride. You're sitting there watching Black Panther, and you listening to like some of those Durban sounds, the gourmet stuff. That's what was also nice about it, that it was, you know, the best stuff. And what about Uncle John speaking Xhosa? And and you know that is a sound that is purely South African, and you can even go even more specific. It's so Durban, and it's so unique. Yes. You know, you can't create that sound coming from anywhere else. You know, it's just so South African. That's that whole heritage. You think of Kwaito when it came out. You think of Beyonce's video "Girls Who Run the World." that those dance moves that were just the dancers came from Mozambique. I don't
But
understand how.
but they
to
were
me
doing his pants.
it looked like trompies. It looked like what we saw trompies years ago. It was very trompies. But anyway, maybe those guys, they learned it in South Africa, or I don't know. But it was very South African. Now, you mentioned Black Panther. One of the interesting things that Uncle John shared with us was that when he got to the set of them, when he was working on the script when they called him in for Black Panther, and then they gave him the script of this fantasy African land, they were speaking gibberish, actually. And he turned around and he said, so what's this language that I'm speaking? They said, oh, no, don't worry.
He was going like,
and that mixture
He was like, no,
Star Trek. Is it where's this coming from? The caves of Stekfontein. And they said, no, don't worry, you're not saying anything. It's completely meaningless. It's so made up. And he said, but why? I do have a language that I speak. I'm Xhosa. What kind of? They were like, oh yeah, okay, good. What's that? Xhosa. Give us some of that. And you just see how amazing that collaboration turned out to be. You think of like a Durban, how the movie was shot in Durban. It just became such a South African expression, and we hope that it brings more. And that is part of our heritage. Us holding on to things that make us unique, regardless of how popular they are at the time. Because what is true will always stand. It will stand the test of time, regardless of endorsements. It never needs endorsements of popular vote or popular public opinion. If it's something that's authentic, it will shine through.
And people tend to underestimate culture as a whole, but you look at immigrant cultures across the world, especially I like to use the example of Indians and Chinese, who built everything that they've got on Indian restaurants, on Chinese restaurants. I've got families that I've got very, very wealthy Indian families that do amazing business, but when you go back, they'll tell you, no, we started 2 generations ago. My mom, when they got here in South Africa, or when they got to the States, they started selling samosas. And what is a samosa? It's something unique to Indians that everybody loves. It's been so commercialized. I mean, everybody loves a good samosa. Anyway, listen, my producers are giving me a dirty look now. It's time for us to pay our bills. Catch you on the other side of this. Please do not move away. Thank you.
It's the official Major World Online Stu Invasion.
Bars on bars.
What about me right now? It's about our guest. Bafethi skipani. Amathi ngathalele bafethi. Yo, I'm a flenyana studio bafethi skipani. Oh, freestyle. Shenge freestyle. Fana kuma no baba Andy.
Hey baba Andy. Hashtag.
Ahlanganisela amathi beat dog. Ngiyacela.
Young niggas ambition, waking up is working for money. Changing their past, feeding their fams, balang lali. We keep it running like SPV, exchanging money.
Man, nice. Hey, nice. Call them unexpected experts. White sweatshirt.
Hey.
Looking down on these niggas, my damn neck hurts.
Woo.
You can go ahead, homie, give me your best work. I bet you take your phone out and mumble up your first words.
Live from 27 Boxes in the heart of Melville. This is brandlive.co.za.
Have you ever thought about the power of social media? Social media has the power to make your business grow. Grow! Yeah. Why don't you let us manage your social media? Because our business is to see your business grow. Visit us at www.beastownmedia.co.za.
Making a bold statement yet blending into the surrounding suburbs of Melville, 27 Boxes is a realization of edgy design and practical implementation. A radical departure from the shopping malls of our generation, yet not a return to the high streets of our youth. 27 Boxes showcases the best of a shopping centre set in a garden, surrounded by the bohemian suburb that is Melville. 27 Boxes, shop, play, eat.
Whether you're an athlete or just going about your day-to-day business, use Turbo Freeze on the go for any pain relief or inflammation. It's the #1 pain relief formula. To find out more, log on to our website www.turbofreeze.co.za.
You're listening to brandlive.co.za.
Brandlife.co.za, discussing culture, discussing our roots, discussing the significance of what culture means to us and how we are able to hold on to our culture, be South African, and be able to appreciate and enjoy everything that makes us uniquely South African.
Of course, and before we went on the break, we were talking about turning your, when your heritage becomes your wealth, how do you turn the unique things about a heritage into your wealth? And finding those unique things that you used some great words. You said you take the familiar and the peculiar, you turn it into the new norm, the new exotic.
Voila.
And that is really what it's about. And when we spoke of the Indian of the Bollywood style type of singing, when it comes to fashion, I mean, you think of how far South African fashion has come over the last 10 years, where we took traditional staples, things that were hidden away, they were kept for ceremonies. You'd only see them if people were celebrating important days, Dingan's Day, Shangan's Day, Shaga's Day, all those things. And now they've become the everyday norm. I only wear South African clothes, and I don't think I'm the only one. It's become a norm. Like, you know, one of the things we used to say in the olden days, like, you know, in the olden days, when you looked at the South African landscape, just standing on the streets, you would never have guessed you were in Africa. There was very little from the way people are dressed. You could have been anywhere. But that has changed. And one of the most heartwarming stories today was, I was reading on my way here on Facebook, one of my Facebook friends, where she says her two sons said to her, "Mama, why are we wearing West African shirts? Don't you have anything in our house, like in our culture, like something Mbato-ish, like closer?" And these were the kids asking the mom. And she stopped. She had to stop and think about it, because it was just the easy thing to do. And she had to run around calling her friend and asking if they can quickly sort something out. And they did, and the kids look beautiful, and they have a story they can tell, because it's not really about the look. I think we do ourselves a disservice when we just get through these things, or, I mean, some people are lucky that they're able to express what they feel on a daily basis. So those days, parents help the kids to understand, help them to get dressed, and it's one of those things that's really a blessing about having children. They force you to live. Come Valentine's Day, they want to wear red clothes. Come Heritage Day, they want to express their heritage. And it's one of those things that ensure continuity of life and ritual.
No, for sure. And we must not forget, Heritage Day is actually King Shaka's day. That's the significance. It's the day that he passed away.
Very important to
King
remember.
Shaka for us, it's... I don't know why they dilute it, because, he's such a strong icon. He's just something to behold in terms of the personality, the adversity that he had to come through. Young black men, we don't have too many heroes out there. And, he's a guy, I'll never forget, I mean, sitting at boarding school, did not know much about King Shaka. I was a young black boy. I think there were 2 of us out of 300 kids. And now, for the first time in the 2 years, we got to see a black icon. Everything about our history and everything was always based on the white side, which is great. But, as a young black man, I found that...
Not enough heroes.
Yeah, just not enough heroes, nothing to aspire to. You think of guys like Napoleon, you think of, guys like Mr. Churchill or Horatio Nelson, the battles of Trafalgar. It was always, these white men who came from this privilege and how they established, colonies and things like that, and, the work that they were doing. But there was nothing for us to celebrate. And, to come back and then to only discover in my 30s that Heritage Day is actually the day of King Shaka. I think, government and especially tourism must do more to celebrate that, because he is a very strong icon. If you think of Americans, all Americans don't know nothing about South Africa, but if you ask an American about Zulu, I love my Zulus, and the stories have transcendent, and I think it should actually just go back to King Shaka Day, you know.
Sure, he's as
Nkosi Yamangosi, you know.
of course, he's as iconic as those as any
Alexander the Great.
as any of our greats, you know, and we should celebrate him. I think you also touched on something very important about role models. You know, we're at a time where our kids need stronger role models. But most importantly, what I often say is I think your role models must be people who come from similar circumstances as you. It's easier to relate. You know, you can read about Napoleon's great warfare or any of the great military leaders who've got admirable things to look at. But it's still so far from us. But now if you bring it to people closer to us, I mean, I'll never forget when you study the World War I and World War II, and then you get to the South African part. It was almost as if, and then you've got people like who'll tell you, my great-grandfather was in this war and blah, 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 did this and this. And then when it comes to us, there is purely no record of our role in the war. And
we were there.
It is an interesting story that we would love to know.
No, but
that must be celebrated. And if we have any of the people today that fought in the war, that would be interesting. Any, you know, South Africans who fought in the war, where are they, those veterans?
Yeah, but don't joke, because obviously, like I said, I went to the school, and you know they've got like a whole memorial chapel. Guys were taken from school and to go fight in the war, the South African white guys. And some of the guys, you know, they tell you, no, my dad was there, my great-grandfather was there. They even point to them, and you just see this pride and
the legacy. You know,
and I went back home, and I'm sorry to say, I went back home and I asked my grandmother, okay, so you know what was your involvement in World War I and
contribution?
II? My grandmother looked at me as if I was crazy, and I was just so disappointed. I just couldn't believe. I was like, God, and but then obviously, you know, as you grow older, you understand, you know, apartheid and the struggle and things like that.
And how the story is always told by the victors. That's the importance of diversity, which brings us to Heritage Day. That it's really about how best we can build one another and live together by saying to each other, each other's cultures more than individuals, that I value you, your culture matters. It contributes to this great collective that is South Africa, that is the world. Your existence gives us that much more richness to what we are trying to do, in all fairness. And it is important to tell stories, so we want to encourage more people to tell their own stories, you know, kids to write books. Let's write books. Let's tell our stories.
I think everyone must get into
and everyone has a very unique story to tell. I mean, when you sit down with people and you actually get them to open up, you are always so blown away by what their struggles, their challenges, their triumphs, their role models, what shapes them, what makes them who they are. And I think when it comes to role modeling and mentorship, things like that become very, very important. I am motivated by people who've come before me. You know, great role models out there.
Word is bond. I think culture is such a beautiful thing.
Mm-hmm.
And as black South Africans especially, I want us to go into ourselves, you know. I want us to understand, you know, what our roots are, where our backgrounds are, how things work, you know. And also, you know, small things like talking to Abantu Abadala, finding out what your family tree is, you know, because most of us cannot go back more than a generation or two. You know, so remember that there are people that are still alive around us. There are people that can still give you that information. And the reason why I'm saying this is that my children, every year, one of them has to do a family tree. And you know, it's interesting from the first child to the fourth child how this family tree has just grown. And this family tree, you know, we're having to ask people, like, hey,
some uncomfortable questions in the family.
I even have to go back to my cousins in Somerset East, because my dad did not know who his father was, but my cousin, they know who, you know, the parents separated, and then we rejoined them, and then hopefully later on this year, you know, I need to go and find out what my father's side of the family was like in terms of his father. You know, the mother's side is fine because, you know, they were there, but you know, you want to go and ask these questions now while people are still alive, so that we're able to have, you know, some sense of continuity. You need to know who your grandfather was, who your great-grandfather was, who your great-great-grandfather was. I'm not saying
and where your culture came from. Why do you do certain things in your family? You find that there's certain things that you do, but nobody's ever explained them to you, and you run the danger of losing them along the way because you don't know the significance. And it is only when you understand where they come from, why you live the way you live.
And the nice thing about clan names is that when you start dissecting clan names and you go from the begin, you go from the top, and as you start going like George, Tekos, Kali, Solomon, Kali, you know, all those things. Do you understand that? Not that you don't need the Bible, but that route will take you back to where everything began.
But also, what I like about the clan names, it's how the stories of heroism come out.
Yeah.
Like, for instance, you go Butsolo Ndonga, George, Bukali Bezembe, the sharpness of the axe, the precision
of the stick,
the precision of the stick.
Warriors.
All those things, they help you remember who you are and the way, you know, and what you're supposed to do. And talking about lifestyle, it was a great week. The legalization of marijuana in South Africa. It's got everyone buzzing, literally.
Yeah.
And it's interesting, where do we go from here? Because that is one of those things that affects the way we live. It's a huge debate. I think we can get into it. We can talk about it some more next week, the pros and cons, what people are feeling, where do we go from here? Because there's just so many things, you know, from the debate that it's a gateway to other drugs, and then you look at the whole opioid thing in America, where people are taking legalized prescription drugs and they end up as wrecks, and all the other benefits of it. But, you know, as we get into this weekend, may you all look beautiful. Support your local trader. Go get some nice heritage things. We excited. It's always so colorful. People come into the mall. We'll see a lot of people coming into the square to take pictures next to Nelson Mandela, wearing their beautiful clothes. It's been a great week. It's been a blessed week. With so many horrible things happening around, it's nice to have things to celebrate, things that bring us together. And yeah, I look forward.
I think so. And talking about heritage, you know, I've been looking at the Muslim faith. 2 weeks ago, they had a holiday where basically during the year you're allowed to slaughter when you want, but there's one point in the year where everybody slaughters together. I want to get all the Xhosas and the Zulus and the Tswanas and the Tsongas to slaughter together. You know, we focus the whole thing together. It's not going to happen overnight.
Channel the energy. It's really
just
about
to channel that energy, just to get everyone to understand that, you know, once a year, yes, we've got our different ways of doing things.
A slaughter and a prayer session.
If once a year we can do a slaughter, a prayer, and an offering, I think the ancestors will be very happy. Yeah?
Who knows?
And this is the one station where we talk about ancestors. This is the one station that we are proud of our ancestors, because, like they say, without your ancestors, ungubane. So, 10 seconds to go. As Richard Quest says, whatever that you do, make sure that it is profitable. We are over and out. This is the Fashion Blueprint. Not only do we talk business, but it's more lifestyle. It's about a way of doing things and a culture of being together here in South Africa. Bantu basekhaya, siyabulela.
Happy Heritage Day. Thank you. Thank you for joining us.
To brandlive.co.za. Live from 27 Boxes in the heart of Melville, this is brandlive.co.za.